No swearing.
That's right.
Alright.
Okay. So get over to Mafia Wars here. And I'm just going to go over to New York to start because this is actually how Mafia Wars started out. So, for those of you that use Facebook, which is probably most people, you'll probably see a lot of stuff in your news feeds that have to do with Mafia Wars, Farmville, Fish, something, you know, there's all the Zynga games are up top, Treasure Isle, Yoville, Cafe World, Petville, Poker, Vampire Wars, there's all sorts of different Facebook things. And chances are that by now you've probably blocked as many of the posts as you possibly can. I have as well. It was asked of us at ETS at one point when Mafia Wars first came out if we would play the game and try to determine some educational benefit. So I do play Mafia Wars. I have blocked absolutely everything else because I refuse to handle more than one game or get sucked into more than one game at a time. The good news is if you've blocked it and if you've decided, okay, you want to go check this out, you can settings and ask to unblock it. And you can unblock that specific game. You won't unblock all of the game. Because what happens, and I'll just go back to my news feed really quick here, is you can see that there's a post here, Anish needs help with fighting somebody, and you can see there's 39 similar posts listed below it. If I click onto that, it's going to bring up 39 Mafia Wars posts here of people needing help or having gifts for you, etc. And it can get really crazy really quick. So I will just click here to get back into center, and you'll notice that I just helped out Don Diesel here and got 7 points. But what this is Mafia Wars started out as a New York Mafia game, basically. And what there are inside it is you actually start out with jobs. So I'll go back down here, and you can see levels 1 through 4 are street thugs, and then you move yourself up to become enforcers, hitmen, etc. So when you start the game for the first time, you'll notice that it only takes 1 energy to complete this job. And you just go over and you say, okay, do this job. And your mastery level moves up. And as you can see, I've mastered this completely 3 times. So it's fully locked out now. But what happens is you started out with maybe 10 or 25 energy. You see my health up here. I have 325 at 325. That started out at like 100. Like I said, the energy only started out at like 10 or 12. I have 2,500. Same with stamina. This is what lets me do my job. So I can do, I can fight somebody 300 times now. But you'll notice here's my experience over here. It's this huge area now where I might have used to only had to complete, 15 experience things. I now have to complete somewhere around 6,000 before I can move up a level. So what it does is it gives you the entry area, but then as you play, it gets harder and harder for you to continue to level up. So jobs take more energy. Fights are harder because the other people have more weapons, things like that. So how do you get this money to begin with is, one, you do some jobs and see it'll give me $12 if I do this job one time. And you'll see as it starts to go up, so I'm making about $1,300 each time I do the job at the end here. But then I also have something called properties. What else do you do than, buy properties and rent them out to people? So it starts out with being able to purchase a deli, and I can actually collect my rent on it now. So I just got $250. So what I get is I get $250 an hour for owning this property. And then, of course, they go up, and you'll notice that I can't collect on this one for almost a day. Here's a 24 hours that I can't collect. But I have to purchase these along the way. And you can see now that my total hourly income is somewhere around $216 million. It starts out, like I said, at that $200, and it works its way up. So this money is then used to buy better weapons, which allow me to fight people and have a better chance at winning. And like I said, you have to master to move forward. And what's unique is that the first time that you started here, you only had access to New York, and they made you choose between becoming a mogul a fearless person or a maniac at the start, and you really didn't know much about it. And really what it is there's 3 different personalities or types of players that you could have become. The mobile earns more money faster. The fearless wins more fights, has a better chance at fighting, higher fighting stats. And the maniac, its energy regenerates faster. So they have a better chance of being able to do more stuff. So it all goes back to that first day when I knew nothing about this game, when I selected whatever, is to where I was stuck. And I had to learn how to build my character and play the game around that person. And that's where it gets into, Elizabeth had me come do this, because you'll notice I got up to level 718. I don't play constantly. I probably check in once in the morning, drain my energy completely, and I check in once again in the afternoon or evening. So I'm on maybe twice a day. But I level up quickly because I chose the character person that the energy regenerated quicker, and you can see I've put most of my stuff into energy as well, so I just keep going. That said, when I go to fight people, I'll lose probably quicker than, say, Brett would, depending on what he picked. So that's how the difference in the personalities came about. And then, once we all ended up mastering everything in New York, you know, it was like, okay, well, that was a fun game. Well, you'll notice then they came out with Cuba. And same sort of deal, you had to go to Cuba, and you can see here's all your job mastery, and you had to buy more things. So this requires 32 energy, and I had to have a knife and a boat or a guide. I think that's a guide, yeah. And then in Cuba and Moscow, how they started doing things were you bought businesses instead. So you can see here that I purchased a bodega, and I upgraded its capacity to its full 800. Upgraded its output to 100 every 3 hours, and you can see here's my stock. And this is what you gets you kind of sucked back into the game, is that I earn things, you know, every 3 hours. And so if I don't come in and sell this stuff, I could be just wasting my money, because it won't give me any more if I max out that capacity. So this is what causes people to come in, because you need to sell all your stuff. And then I just sold everything. You'll notice that my sales gave me 38,000 Cuban pesos. I have to bank that money, or somebody's going to come in and rob me. Because everybody wants money because they need money to go do things. So that's what kind of keeps you coming back. And then with Moscow, same thing. But what they started doing is, in the jobs area, you actually had to start choosing alliances to unlock certain paths. And they were the Mafia or the Vori, and based on who you picked, it changed the game as far as, did you get better defensive weapons, did you get better offensive weapons along the way. Same now with Bangkok. And here's the one I'm working on. You can see I actually have some to go. But there's the Triad, and I think it's the yeah. So same deal. This game is happening based on the choices that I've made along the way. So now you kind of have an overview of the different cities and the different things that they've added to the game, such as the alliances, such as the businesses. Really looking back at what the educational benefits are. Those of you from the business school, I think, will be the happiest of the bunch here, because I think that this is huge for finance, for accounting, for supply chain, etc. Obviously, you can't name it Mafia Wars, and you can't have people killing each other. That's probably not the educational thing that we want to, we want to show.
Conflict with their honor.
Right. But what if you named it Trade Wars? And what if at the beginning you had a couple different types of characters where they picked less risky or more risky as far as what they were willing to do? They were given a given amount of money to start, and then based on the decisions that they were making in this game, determined how successful they became along the way. So you can see where this comes, especially with the finance, the accounting, things like that. Supply chain's a little different, but I've thought this through too. The alliances on here specifically, you can make friends, or you can form alliances with different suppliers and different retailers, and that's going to, again, cause you to go different ways in the game. But in the end, if you were to play this for the course of a semester, when did we start this? Last summer, maybe?
That's probably
last spring?
been,
Probably about a year now. Yeah, about a year.
It's been a while.
March or April last year. Anyway, you'll see a big difference just over the course of the semester. I mean, you have 13 weeks in there. So if you get them to choose something, you know, when they start out at the beginning of the semester where they're not really sure, by the end of the semester, they should be able to come back to you and say, you know, I really realized these choices that I made at the beginning were some tough things, but I really understand it now. And the best part about it, obviously, and you guys have the trading room or whatever, but this is another place where they can either make a whole bunch of money or lose a whole bunch of money, and they're not going to really, you know, break a parent's bank. So it's another interesting little simulation that they can get before they go out into the real world. We're also asked to talk about the downsides to this, so I want to talk about the addicts, basically. I've seen people on my list go by, you know, asking for help or things like that, who've said, I have to delete this now, my family's more important to me. Where they're just so into this game that they spend, you know, hours upon hours a day just sitting here doing this game. Obviously, to achieve the best results, you have to log in multiple times a day. And when you start out and you only get, you know, 10 energy points and they regenerate pretty quickly, it causes you to go back in and use them. When you get up to the level I am, you know, I drain my energy and it's not going to come back for a day or two, so I don't really have to worry about that anymore. But what Zynga is doing, who owns all of these games here, they now offer the ability to purchase points or energy or stamina for real money. And people are now spending their real money on getting points to finish this game quicker, which can be a big ethical dilemma. As well, they also offer achievements, and I can show you in my profile. Recent achievements. So they have different achievements that I can get along the way. Earned by mastering a stage in New York. Earned by mastering all of New York. Earned by defeating somebody that's bigger than me, 15 fights in a row. You can see how that goes. You'll notice I did complete a lot of these. I haven't put in $1 trillion yet. That should actually happen by the end of the week. But there's a couple down here that they just added, which made me decide that I want to delete the game. The one is, you can't really see here, this one's called the Working Remotely achievement, earned by doing 100 jobs through Mafia Wars Mobile. So now people can do it on their cell phones just as easily as they can on the computer. But then the next ones down here are Ace Up the Sleeve, earned by obtaining level 6 in Zynga Poker. So they're not just doing Mafia Wars things anymore, they're actually requiring you to go play the other Zynga games in order to get these achievements out of the way. Which, like I said, I refuse to go play any other games. I think that's rough, but what Zynga's done, I mean, that's great. They're getting people to get sucked into one game, and now they're getting sucked into 3 or 4 others because of the overlap. So it's just kind of interesting. Those are a few downsides, or like I said, just kind of sticky points with me. But I can really see a game like this or some simulation like this, you know, really helping out in the classroom when you want to get into simulation play and actually have them doing something that's real life. So.
Yeah, just something else I wanted to add. I'm not nearly at her level, but we actually were talking about an interface like Mafia Wars for an anthropology trading game, where it's called the Penny Game, and the idea is you trade with neighbors, and then there's a stage where all your resources get wiped out by a tsunami or a typhoon, and then you have to see who has enough credit that they can get help from their friends. So it also could work for different types of trading venues. But I like that the venue, or the interface, was fairly simple. You just click a button and you have a transaction, and then you find out, you log back in later and you see what happened, or if you got something from your friends.
The question I have, you know, we've done simulations in business school for a lot of different disciplines, but we've had to create those. Does this platform allow us to create, or, I mean, can the company allow us to create that? I mean, that's where the value would come from, instead of us creating it from ground zero, if we would have the platform to be able to create our own trading thing.
Like as a shell and.
Right.
Yes,
I don't think
yeah,
that-
that's my point.
I've not seen that
Yeah,
yet.
I don't know the thing that does that.
I think that will come, because I think what will happen is there's a lot of kids out there, they're talented, they'll reverse engineer this stuff and put it out open source. And I'm basing that on other similar things I've seen happen in the past with other types of games. No guarantees there, but I think it will happen.
I mean, that's where the value would really come for us,
Oh,
instead of us
absolutely.
going through the cumbersome process that we've done over the years of creating our own simulations and regressions, is to have a platform that allows us to do that on the fly.
I do think this particular platform would not be the worst thing to reverse engineer, although obviously if you could get Singer to do it, that would be much better.
Yeah.
And who knows, they might that idea at some point, because, I mean, they're constantly trying to build their revenue stream by adding new games and adding new features to existing games to get people into it, and then they make their money through selling advertising space and selling these cards now and so on. So they're going to, I would imagine at some point, they're going to start to plateau, and that might be the opportunity to go look, offer them those type of opportunities, if they think it's an opportunity. The problem that we have trying to work with game companies in general for educational products is the profit. There's no profit for them.
I mean, the trading competition that we've done in the past, we've collaborated with CMU and what they've developed, and it's worked well, but at the same time, this seems, has a lot more variability, and if you could, let's say, and we've done this with the trading competition, professors will say, okay, there is some earthquake. What's that do with how you're thinking about investing in this part of the world? So that's pretty cool. That really challenges the students on how, here I'm going down this path, and now I've had this natural disaster. What do I need to do to change management of the...
And the same with the stock things. You can just say, okay, well, big stock crash today.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
How are you
Couldn't
recovering?
you just feed the market into it? That would
Exactly,
be even
yeah,
better,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
So, like,
But
just
they
do,
can
I
play
mean,
with the real stuff.
right, well, that's you could play with the real stuff then, and that's the most valuable experience, not even something we make up, because we can't make up half the stuff that goes on.
But the other thing, and Aaron talked about this, and that I find interesting about this, is the traditional games, we're used to thinking of somebody sitting down at a game and playing it for a half hour, an hour, whatever, and then being done with it, or maybe coming back. But these are games that you play in short bursts over a much longer period of time. So you sit down, I mean, I know it takes me about 10 minutes. Like, I'll go play 10 minutes in the morning and I'm done. I'm done for the day then. Because I'm like her, I need to wait for my energy to rebuild and so on. So, but I've been playing it for a year, as opposed to sitting down and playing a game for 5 hours. So,
And I think when
I don't
we
know what
first
that means.
started, like I said, the bank was constantly full of hours, and so it was like we'd come in the morning and we'd check in, and then, by lunchtime, we're in there again trying to bank our money before somebody steals it from us, and again, late afternoon, in there trying to bank your money, and, so it is, at the start, interesting to see the difference from a year down the road, where you're so built up.
Brett, you said 10 minutes, when you start out, is it 10 minutes, and now after so much work, you're trying to start spending more time per session, but less time per day,
I might spend, I usually log in like once in the morning, and then once, at night at some point. I would say I probably spend between 10 and 20 minutes on, each time. And that's, with my energy here, it's coming down, seeing what I need to do job-wise, and doing a job. And so when I have 2,500 energy, you'll notice, that just spent 113. But I can sit here and do this job again, 50 times in a row, and away it goes. The big time is where the stamina is, because that's where I can fight people. So if I choose to go in and fight people individually, I mean, I can select who I want to fight, and that would only take off one thing. But since the New York area built this little robbing shell in here, all I do is I just go in here, and you notice this takes 7, this takes 15, and so I can literally go, okay, there goes 15, okay, there goes 30, And again, it's gone pretty quick. So I'd say probably an average day, I spend probably 20 to 30 minutes total, with the game.
And is that higher than when you started?
I'd say when I started, I was logging in probably, 6 times a day rather than 2, and I was still probably spending 10, 15 minutes in, just because I didn't quite know what I wanted to do yet, or I was still trying to purchase weapons, so I was really trying to play a lot smarter, I guess.
I would say for me, it's pretty flatlined as far as my time.
Yeah.
Over at least the last 9 months, because there might be more things for me to do. I've optimized my time when I go in. I know exactly what I want to do, and I kind of have a mental checklist. And in fact, they just recently added a physical checklist in there where you can check off the main things you want to do every day. And you just go in there and do it, and then you're done.
Yeah,
People can spend a lot of time on it, though. I mean, but I went on vacation, and, I was gone for 2 weeks, and I probably logged in like 3 times total. You don't log in, you just don't level up. You don't get your money.
I like it. It's kind of like Warcraft. They force you to learn the basics and then slowly ramp up with all the details. Almost, you can think of this in a semester flow. Introduce them at really low level things, force them to master the energy, the stamina, and then start to open up additional things that draw you deeper in as the weeks go up to week 16.
Well, see, I'm thinking that's true, but when we started playing the game, it had just opened. So it was simpler, and they added complexity to it. Now, if you were to come in as a new user, you'd be hit with all that complexity. There's no scaffolding, there's no, you've gained a new level, now you have this new bar up where you can click on it. That's not.
Plus you have a different, not skill set, but level of users now, right? So you guys are these users that are way over here.
Come in and just
If I came in as a new person, that's the problem.
they don't let-
Warcraft, and they manage that.
They don't let the big users fight the smaller ones.
Okay.
You have to fight
There's
ones
some
that are within like
relationship.
100 levels of
Okay.
you or something like that. Yeah.
So I think that's what, in a classroom, but in a classroom setting, that might be to a disadvantage, right? Because not everyone in the world is on the same playing field ever. You have people that have different resources or whatever, so that, I think that if you're going to do this, would definitely be something you need to think about, because it's built into the games that millions of people are playing, the different levels of people and how they interact.
Since we're kind of budgeting time, I'm gonna switch over to Farmville, which you'll see has some similarities with Mafia Wars, but some key differences. And first thing I'm
They're
gonna
not familiar with this.
I think one thing that I think is probably even more important in Farmville is you can exchange gifts. So my pal Steve here is a neighbor of mine in Farmville, and he's given me a gift, and I'm gonna and Steve too. And I actually try and I'm gonna send you a tree. I hope you want that, but so he sent me a tree. I've sent Steve a tree. You're gonna see in a few minutes that I'm going to plant it on my farm, and I've got one more. And there's one thing I wish I could sort of batch accept, because
I know.
I neglect my farm shamefully.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, so I'll send Steve another thank you. So now
This is Zynga as well, so you're going to see a lot of similarities with this. Like the Mafia Wars, the gift thing happens just the same way, but you're maybe sending guns or car parts or things like that instead of butterflies and trees.
Butterflies and flowers.
Right.
All right, so
They're a little nicer on the farm.
all right, so as you can see, people have fertilized my crop, so thank you, neighbors. And all right, I'll deal with that later. All right, so I have my little dinky plot. Actually, I'm going to say one thing. It takes a lot longer to play Farmville per round, because they have constant pop-ups. And if you're on, not on a broadband, forget it. It's painful. But anyway, here is my plot of eggplant.
Good.
And I planned it carefully so that I would actually, I planted these 2 days ago, knowing that they would mature in 2 days, and that I would be ready to harvest them during this session. Because otherwise, if I planted them 3 days ago and didn't come back till today, they'd all be brown and sad and withered.
Well, this brings up a very good point, though. There are time management skills in these games that you pick up on after a while to try to optimize your playing time, and that's a prime example of it. I mean, I do the same thing in some of those. I'm like, I have a job that will take, in one of these other games, Social City I'm playing, it'll take 8 hours or 12 hours, and then I look and say, where am I going to be 8 hours from now? Where am I going to be 12 hours from now? And so I plan ahead. And so.
So
How many
actually-
times did students skip classes because they had to go harvest their eggplant?
You start to wonder now, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, it's like
They just
Tamaguchi.
do it in class, and I would work.
Yeah.
Yeah, or that, yeah.
So that's done, and, oh, and I have some eggs. So actually, this is, what do you, swan is ready. I'm about to, got to gather some swan feathers.
Oh, you want them on there?
And,
Oh, boy, was that time
and
right.
then this is where I could share it or not, so I think I'm not going to share it. Chicken coops collect eggs, and sometimes I find a mystery egg, and then if I share those with my friend, they can collect eggs, and they have little surprises in them. I'm actually being a bad friend because I'm not sharing all of my
I know.
goodies. So I can see I'm disappointing. And I'm now going to go visit my friends. I'm actually going to visit Steve. I've already sent him a gift, so I'm going to visit his farm, and you can see that being level 55 gets you a lot. All right, so I'm going to chase away his gophers. And then, let me see if I can.
You just have to click on those to fertilize.
And this is, just like I had sparkly things because people fertilized for me, I'm gonna make his field sparkle. Yes. And doing this gets me what are called XP or experience points. And just like in Mafia Wars, they bump you up for another level, but it's really important to pay attention to experience points versus coins, because every time you go up a level, you get something called a Farmville dollar, and you really need to hoard those carefully because that's how you get buildings. I found an egg. I don't want to tell anyone about it. And then I'm going to feed the chickens. And I think so as you can see, Steve has like all sorts of, he's gotten into animal husbandry.
Now, are you organic here, or?
With all the stuff I keep finding in the cow barns, yes, I am organic.
He's got Mr. Gift up, he's got a windmill,
Got some bull.
and he's got the bull. Now, it's hoping that,
It looks like he's gonna eat your crops.
Right to farming.
yeah. Now, the one thing that also keeps you coming back in
Animal rights
addition,
people are gonna be after you, cramming them in there like that.
Oh, I know.
anyway, in addition to everything else that makes you come back, they have holiday-themed goodies. So I think these are the Easter sheep.
No, they were politically correct. They called them spring.
Okay, they're sunny. These are shamrock sheep in case you don't celebrate St. Patrick's Day, and love sheep in case you don't celebrate Valentine's Day. But that was how I acquired my Chinese gate. And that was before I knew not to spend all my Farmville dollars. They're carefully hoarded. So I'm sort of been talking about the disadvantages. I find Mafia Wars a lot quicker to play, but this actually, obviously you can build your own farm, you can add ponds, I have my little orchard growing, so I'll actually go back to my farm.
But one thing that they have here that speeds it up a little bit is you can get and harvesters and feeders, and they'll do 4 plots at a time, so you don't have to do each individual plot. And I thought, I won't do that much, but lately it's been taking enough time that I've been using the mechanical
how's the collaborative aspect? I know in Farmville, you have neighbors and you help each other out. I don't play Mafia Wars. So is there a collaborative aspect of Mafia Wars as well, or no? Or is that a difference of the two?
You have a mafia, so you get your
So you
friends
have-
all to join your mafia,
Okay.
and the highest you can go is 501 people.
Okay.
So the biggest thing that comes along is there's collections to earn. So in my certain level in Russia, I was earning the Russian dolls collection, and there were maybe 5 or 6 things that I had to find. It's really hard to find them all on your own, and so what you end up doing is you end up working out, trades and things like that, where you work together to get the things completed.
Okay.
So, and you saw where somebody was asking me for help. There's certain jobs that you can't do yourself. You actually have to have other people come in and
I find in these games that the level of interaction between players is very, very carefully crafted within the game interface itself. So there's ways to communicate with each other, but it's on the game's terms. So if you want to just have a chat on the side, there's nothing built in for that kind of stuff.
So the Farmville concept is similar to the Mafia. I mean, it's a point, earning
Right.
money,
They're pretty much
Something
all
like
like that.
yeah.
but you're farming.
Yeah, but this, but this has a building aspect where you can buy office parks in Mafia Wars, but you never see them. They're just things you collect money here, whereas here,
Like you bought that bench and put it in there.
or I can place the trees however I want them. So I got this Chinese gate, and then I got a picket fence. Now, the other interesting thing about this in terms of collaboration is all of my chickens, I haven't bought any of my chickens, they've all been gifts. So that's, the more neighbors you have, the quicker you can build up your level of commodities.
So can let's say a neighbor wants to give you something you don't want, like their excess waste, can you deny that?
You can sell it.
You can.
And actually, I think you start learning, if you visit each other's farms, you'll probably figure out, people have figured out I like trees because they don't wither as quickly.
Yeah, and some
It's
some
some people like-
I was just say, they don't wither at all.
They don't wither at all, so I can come back anytime and they'll all be pretty and fruity and I can just harvest them, I just don't get as much money.
I know in Mafia Wars you can give people, your comrades, you can give them respect or disrespect.
Right.
Now, I've never
Go ask
received
for gifts.
disrespect from anyone,
I've
but
done it.
that's kind of a negative thing, have you?
Usually they're closer buddies who just want to mess with you.
Scoop in with you.
Yeah.
Because you actually send out asking for gifts to come back because usually they're really good tools and things like that. But they can send you disrespect too, and you get a rotten something, and it actually takes stuff away from you.
So what if Steve has a prize bull that I want, can I go steal it if he leaves his fence open?
In the Mafia, you might be able to steal it, but
I don't think
in
in
Farmville,
Farmville.
no.
But you can grow illicit, they were talking about connections, you can grow marijuana on your farm and give it to your Mafia War friend.
That's a actual, that's
really?
a bad virus, actually.
Oh.
Which is unfortunate, because now people are doing marijuana and things like that, and there's these viruses going into the game.
Just like the real world.
Yeah.
Wow.
One thing that's new in Farmville, just within the last week or so, is what they call cooperative farming. And you try to get your friends to, I want to do something with tomatoes, let's say, and you have X number of plots to plant and harvest, and within a certain period of time. So of course, the more friends you have that you get to do that with, the faster you'll get
Faster,
your
less
gold,
cost
silver.
will be for
Right,
harvesting.
and everybody gets benefits from it.
Right.
I'm working on one right now with a buddy of mine in South Carolina, my cousin in Massachusetts. She started it, and she was into it for about, I don't know if it was a full day or not, but she was saying, nobody's joined me. So I talked with my buddy and said, okay, well, why don't we both join in, see what needs to be done. I'll plant the peppers, you plant the soybeans, and we're probably going to be finished. Well, we'll definitely be finished within the next day. And but then again, you've got that social interaction that way.
So if you look at an ag course, a 400 ag course, and I want to know, should I hire someone to come in and harvest my soybeans, or should I buy a $250,000 harvester to do that, or should I lease the machine to do that? Does it have that kind of capability?
It has some capability, but I think like Mafia Wars, you have to, the thing I'm finding interesting would be making it more realistic, like you could have it, you know, have different climate variations, you could experiment with different types of, I know there are heritage potatoes and things like that, and you could also tie it in a business sense, you could tie it into, you know, you're trying to do commodities and you're looking maybe at a report about what the weather has been like in Farmville and, you know, how does that affect how you purchase certain commodities?
Has anyone in ag reached out to you guys to use Farmville as an educational tool?
No, but, we haven't, you know, maybe that's something that's coming.
Have you found anything that you can directly use it, or you mean that you think, I heard it might teach time management, or develop bad habits on the other end. Anything else that you think you've found that, because we can't modify them at this point, so are there any of these games from this company that
I think we've
think
mainly been
skill-wise-
looking at them from the point of, okay, how are these games happening, and, you know, how can a game be developed that would follow similar principles? I don't think we've been looking at these and thinking that Zynga's going to give us anything. I think we've been looking and going, all right, neat tool, how can we do something that's actually educational along these lines?
Okay,
So
so
it would
developing
have to be
something.
developed, yeah.
Not that we're gonna use the games that are
No.
already, that
It
are
I
on
don't think
stage.
It
so.
would be
I
developed.
kind of look at these goals like proof of concept. That, like I said, somebody might come out with an open source engine that we could build upon. What we've learned from looking at these, and we can kind of apply or say that's a really bad idea, we're not going to put that in.
This one in particular, I think is, you could, for instance, adapt it, some elements for Second Life, because there are a lot of building elements. So I sometimes wonder if part of the appeal is it's a more structured form of Second Life. You don't have to go out and hunt everything comes to you and you place it. But on the flip side, you could start a farm in Second Life and maybe make some types of interactions more realistic. Like you can, you know, add a hill or.
You know, my son is getting a minor in ag, and so when I look at his 400 level, you know, homework assignments, you know, it's similar to what we do in the business. You get the professor sends it out, these are the scenarios, and you work it through on their paper, Excel sheet. What a neat way for, if we could take this technology and use it within that, so they could actually see throughout the semester as they, that's where the sweet spot is to get that type of learning. And quite frankly, less frustration on the student side, because they understand that world and they're more comfortable in that world than they are with an Excel file or a
And there is actually a full-blown game called Harvest Moon that I think might have more realistic agricultural scenarios, but they wouldn't have all the social aspects to it.
We had one, was there a question over here?
Well, just, I think a comment. We were trying, I guess we were struggling to figure out educational uses of this. The biggest thing is, that depends on what you want to call educational, and what is education, what is not, right?
Sure.
So, for example, you were saying that there's certainly, there's obviously social interaction happening, and for a certain group of people, that is educational, right? And, it's just, meaningless, I guess, that way, and, I think constraints and scaffolding are really important, and I don't, see, them sort of, doing, it the way we really want them to be doing it.
I don't either.
It really has to be tailored.
Yeah, no, there's no profit for them doing that. That's what I keep coming back to.
You know?
What's in it for them?
Yeah.
Well, there could be, I mean, they're gonna say, we don't need you because we got a billion students on here anyway playing this stuff, right? But there's a hook into the marketplace that maybe they could increase if they came back with a customizable educational game that they could put out. And, you know, you've already said there's links into, you know, from Mafia Wars into other games where we could say, okay, we're going to give you this customizable educational piece, but you're going to have to let us put hooks to our other games into it.
Mhm.
I mean, then there's, I think, some opportunity for them, meaning Zynga, but as far as the direct dollars, what's their direct dollars now though for Farmville? It's free, right?
Well, no, because if you Farmville cash, you have to pretty much pay for it because the free way of earning it is very, very slow, unless you're in the game.
Yeah,
That's the hook.
that's the hook for Farmville.
And I've noticed, I may be more sensitive, but it does seem like they're increasing their efforts to do things like send emails to you, make sure you're really, motivated to come back and visit often. And if you've got the time and you can manage your resources, that can be a good thing, but if you don't have the time or
Which
you're
is
not
interesting that
managing.
they've chosen email as their communication format, given that it's a Facebook game.
Actually, Facebook, I believe, for privacy, has locked out the ability to.
Yeah, Facebook just
Yeah.
acquired it about 2 weeks ago.
Right,
Yeah.
so
To
they're,
stop that.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
forcing it to go through email now.
So, thank you.
That was awesome.
I'm back in September.